fourth graders. Today for your grammar lesson, we're going to continue to talk about dialogue. If you remember last week, we talked about dialogue, but we were really focusing in on the commas and where to put commas in dialogue. We learned that the commas separate the dialogue tag from what the person is saying. Today, I want to focus on where to put the quotation marks in dialogue, because just like the commas, they can be quite tricky. So in our first example today, it says, "I don't want to clean my room," Derek whined. Now think back to last week. The dialogue tag is the person's name who is saying something. Okay, so in this scenario, Derek whined would be our dialogue tag. And then you see that we have our comma there. Okay, that's what we learned last week. The comma has to be inside the quotation marks. But it is important to remember where to put your quotation marks. So they go before the first word that somebody says, and they go after the last word somebody says, specifically after that punctuation mark, the comma. All right, so Derek whined, "I don't want to clean my room." All right, Derek didn't say Derek whined, so we don't put that part in the quotations. We only put what he said. Okay, this is an example of a dialogue tag coming at the end of the sentence. In this example, the dialogue tag comes first. April replied, "Someday I would like to learn how to play the piano." So April didn't say, April replied. What April said was, "Someday I would like to learn how to play the piano." So notice where the quotation marks are. They're in front of somebody, and they're after the period and piano. All right, so we have to include that entire thing that she said in the quotation marks. This third one we're going to look at, it's a little bit, you see right here, Ben explained, smack dab in the middle of the sentence. Okay, so let me read it for you. "I have to leave school early today," Ben explained, "because I have a dentist appointment." Now, for a second, let's pretend like we're taking out "Ben explained," and we're just going to leave the other parts. "I have to leave school early today because I have a dentist appointment." That's one sentence, but in this situation, they've interrupted the sentence to tell you who is speaking. Okay, so look closely. We've got our quotation marks here before "I," and then we've got a comma after "today," and then another set of quotation marks, and then we've got "Ben explained." But he's not finished with the sentence yet. So we have a comma here because a comma has to go in between the dialogue tag and the dialogue, and then he finishes a sentence, "because I have a dentist appointment." Right, so this is a very fancy piece of dialogue here. You can use two sets of quotation marks in one sentence if it's framed like this. All right, so you can interrupt your sentence to tell the reader who's speaking and then continue on with what that person is saying. It's pretty cool. Our last example is, "When Grandma saw that I was reading Charlotte's Web, she smiled. I read that book when I was your age." Okay. So Grandma said something, but it was a very short something in comparison to the rest of the example. So Grandma said, "I read that book when I was your age." And that is all she said. That first sentence you see, that's just what Grandma is doing in the sentence. She saw that her granddaughter or grandson was reading the book and she smiled. And then she said, "I read that book when I was your age." You notice here, even though we're very sure that Grandma is the one that is speaking, there is no dialogue tag here. It doesn't say, "Grandma said, I read that book when I was your age." But because of what it said in the first sentence, when she smiled when she saw her reading the book, we know that Grandma's saying, "I read that book when I was your age." But the second part is the only time you see the quotation marks because that's all Grandma said. So it goes before "I" and then after the exclamation mark and "age." All right, so now I'm going to show you what you will be doing for your assignment. today. You're going to get a lengthy paragraph like this one, and you're going to read it, and you're going to try to find the dialogue. And when you find it, you're going to put quotation marks around it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. First, I'm going to read this whole thing to you. While I'm reading, try to catch the dialogue. We're going to go back through it piece by piece, sentence by sentence, and I'll show you how to add those quotation marks. So here it goes. Cassidy and her sister, Marcel, decided to spend the day at the beach. While they were there, they walked along the shore to look for shells. Here's a nice one, Marcel said. It's chipped, though, Cassidy pointed out. Marcel shrugged her shoulders. I like it, she said. She put it in her sand pail. The girls continued to walk. Cassidy stooped down to pick up a large flat shell. I like how smooth this one is. She looked at it more closely and frowned. It has a crack along the bottom. I'll keep looking. Marcel peered closer. I'll take it. It's really good. The girls spent another hour scanning the seashore for shells. After they walked back to their beach chairs, both girls emptied the sand pails to inspect their treasures. Wow, look at all the shells you collected, Cassidy said to Marcel. I could only find a couple of perfect shells. You found tons. Marcel grinned at her sister. That's the thing, she said. My shells aren't perfect. Most of them have chips and cracks and smudges of dirt. But they don't have to be perfect to be beautiful. I thought they were worth keeping anyway. I like that. Okay, so you're going to go through and you're going to add the quotation marks to the dialogue. So let's go sentence by sentence. Decide, is somebody speaking in this example or in this sentence? Okay. Cassidy and her sister Marcel decided to spend the day at the beach. Nobody speaking, I don't need to do anything. While they were there, they walked along the shore to look for shells. Again, nobody is saying anything. Here's a nice one, Marcel said. It's chipped, though, Cassidy pointed out. Okay, so two things just happened. Marcel said, here's a nice one. And Cassidy said, it's chipped, though. So I'm going to put the quotation marks right in front of, here's a nice one. And then I'm going to put it right after the exclamation mark because that is what she said. Here's a nice one, Marcel said. Remember last week when I told you that the comma needs to separate out the dialogue and the dialogue tag? Well, because there's an exclamation mark here, that is serving the purpose of the punctuation mark. So you don't need to add a comma when there's a question mark or an exclamation mark like that. Okay, so let's go ahead in this sentence. It's chipped, though, Cassidy pointed out. Well, what did Cassidy point out? She said that it's chipped, though. Okay, and I'm going to put it after the comma. Okay, let's go ahead with this one. Marcel shrugged her shoulders. I like it, she said. All right, so she didn't say she shrugged her shoulders. What she said was, I like it. I'm going to put it in front of I and after the comma, after it. Okay. Right here, she put it in her sand pail. All right, she didn't say anything. The girls continued to walk. No dialogue. Cassidy stooped down to pick a large flat shell. No dialogue. I like how smooth this one is. She looked at it more closely and frowned. Okay, what did she say? She said, I like how smooth this one is. Do you see a dialogue tag there? I don't see one. And the reason I know Cassidy is the one speaking is because in the sentence before it says, Cassidy stooped down to pick up a large flat shell. So that's how I know it's Cassidy that's speaking. So I'm going to go ahead and put dialogue or the quotation marks around, I like how smooth this one is, because that's what she said. She looked at it more closely and frowned. It has a crack along the bottom. All right, so which one of those sentences did she say? She said it has a crack along the bottom. So the first quotation mark goes before it, and the last one goes after the period, after bottom. I'll keep looking. Uh-oh. Okay. So this is what she said. It has a crack along the bottom. I'll keep looking. Marisol peered closer. So I can't put the last quotation mark here. She stopped talking right here. My bad. All right. So sometimes you'll have two or more sentences. You'll have two or more sentences in the quotation marks in the dialogue. Okay, as long as the person's continuing to talk, you're going to put the first one where they start and the last one where they stop. Okay. Marcel peered closer. I'll take it. It's really good. The girl spent another hour scanning the seashore for shells. So what she said was, I'll take it. It's really good. Here's another example when you're going to have a couple of sentences inside of the quotation marks. You don't have to put a set around every single sentence that they say. You just put one at the beginning of when they start and the end of when they stop talking. The girls spent another hour scanning the seashore for shells. After their beach chairs, both girls emptied their pails to inspect their treasures. Okay, nobody's talking there. It's just what they're doing. Wow, look at all the shells you collected, Cassidy said to Marisol. All right, I see some dialogue. Right before wow, and right after the exclamation mark after collected. Cassidy said to Marisol, I could only find a couple of perfect shells. You found tons. Marisol grinned at her sister. All right, so she said, I could only find a couple of perfect shells. You found tons. So here's another example where there's two sentences inside of one set of quotation marks. Let's continue. Marisol grinned at her sister. That's the thing, she said. My shells aren't perfect. Most of them have chips and cracks and smudges of dirt, but they don't have to be perfect to be beautiful. I thought they were worth keeping anyway. Okay, that's like what, 4 sentences? But we have to put one set of quotation marks around that entire thing because it doesn't interrupt with anything else. There's no dialogue tag that interrupts it. There's no regular sentence without dialogue that interrupts it. So together, and so we're going to put a set of quotation marks right here at the beginning, and then the last set to end it right here at the end. All right? You guys are going to be doing the same thing. Yours looks like this. And so here are your directions, and you're going to be adding the quotation within this paragraph right here. All right? So that is all I have for you. Let me know or let your teachers know if you have any other questions. See you later.